Hello guys, this is Reza and welcome to our Python tutorials. In this tutorial we're going to talk about for loops. For loops are a type of loops that we usually apply on the lists and on the collections of data. Of course there are many other use cases of for loop. Today we are going to talk about different ways you can use for loops. The first and simplest way is to loop over list items. Imagine that you have got a shopping list on which you may have butter, bread, and maybe milk. And you want to print items inside this list one by one in separate lines. The best way is to use for loops, but what is a syntax? We write the keyword for, and then we determine a variable that at each iteration of the for loop takes the value. We can call it item, element, whatever you like. The name is not important. In, it says in which collection, and then you have to write the name of the list, which is shopping list here. For each item in the shopping list, what do we want to do? We put a column, then indented, because we are in the scope of this for loop, we will print item. Because item is a string, the list is a string, we don't need to convert it. So if we run this program now, it will fill shopping list here, and then item by item it goes and reads shopping list, put the item inside this variable, and then prints it. And then when the list ends up, this for loop also ends up, and then the program finishes. Let's run this program to see the results. As you can see, butter, bread, and milk. In order to see another use case of for loop, we will consider phrase. As you remember, phrases are a collection of characters. So maybe we have got a phrase like Vision Academy tutorials, and in this phrase we want to count, for example, letter I's or letter A's. We want to see how many letter I's are there. So we need a counter. We set the initial value to 0, and then you see for each item in phrase we want to check that item. If item equals to, for example, I, we want this counter to be incremented, and then finally we will print counter. Let's trace our code. First of all, we have determined the phrase Vision Academy tutorials, and then we have set a counter to 0. For each character in phrase, if you write this on a string, it loops over the characters one by one, and of course it is case sensitive, so if we had capital I, it wouldn't count here. It checks each character. You remember this item can be everything, you can put it as letter, so here also we have to change it as letter. It can be whatever, not important the name, but you have to call the same name that you put here inside the body of your for loop. So if letter is I, we will increase the counter, and finally when the letters inside phrase ends up, we will get out of this for loop, and here you can see that the counter is printed. In Vision Academy tutorials we have got 1 I, 2 and 3 I's, so we are waiting for 3 to be printed. As you can see, if we checked, for example, A, we will see 2 A's because this A is capital and it is not counted. Only this one and this one are the ones considered here. Now let's talk about another interesting example. You can design functions and use the functions inside your program. As you remember in our course functions, we talked about how to define a function. We want to define power function to get a number to a power. We'll write def in order to write a function, and then we call our function power function, and then as the input, we want two numbers, the base number and the power. And what does this function do? It wants to get that base to the power. How do we do that? We determine a variable called, for example, result. We set it to 1, and then we say for I in this I is the variable, it can be whatever. Now we want to iterate and multiply this base power times. So if power is 3, we want to do this 3 times. If power is 5, we want to do these actions 5 times. So there is a function in Python called range, and then in this range you determine the number of times you want to repeat that. With the range power, what do we want to do? We want to multiply result by base. First result is 1. The first time that we iterate here, don't forget the column. So imagine that base is 2 and power is 3. Range 3 is 0, 1, and 2. But we are not working with I. I is not important for us. We just wanted the repetition, the number of times that this for loop is going to be repeated. So base is 2, power is 3. Range power is 0, 1, 2. For 0, we will multiply result by base. Base is 2, result is 1. 1 multiplied by 2, 2. Then I gets 1, the value of I is not important. 2 multiplied by 2, 4. I gets 2, this result is 4. 4 multiplied by 2, which is the base, it gets 8. I finishes, because range it was 0, 1, 2, range finished, and now result has the final value. What do we want to do now? We will return result. How do we call this? For example, we call this like this. Power function, two numbers, 2 and maybe 3. We will print what this function returns for us, and this function calculates the power and returns the value. Let's check it. 8 is returned here. If we wanted to see power 4 of number 3, we could easily calculate this. It is 81. We can see power 2 of 10, which we're sure it is 100. You can see the results here. So range creates a range of numbers for you. What is there inside range? We can print the values of range here, which is I. Let's see. 0, 1, and then finally the result. Because it was 2, power 2, range of 2 is 0 and 1. If we called it with power 4, we are waiting for 0, 1, 2, 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. And finally the result is printed, which is this result. Range can be called in another way. For example, we could call range of 1 to power. Now, if we call this function with 4, it was range of 1 to 4, which is 1, 2, 3. And it will get 10 to the power of 3. Not important for us because we know the power function. We are just working on range to see how range works. 1, 2, 3. And there are also different implementations of range with different types of arguments. You can check them all in python.org website. But the important thing for us is that if you want to iterate over a list or over an action for a specific number of times, you can put a range of that number here, and then it will iterate over that number. I hope this tutorial has been helpful for you. If you've got any questions, please comment that below. I will answer that question as soon as possible. If you like this video, please give us thumbs up and subscribe to our channel to encourage us to create more videos. Have fun and don't forget to practice.